Welcome back. We are reading The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish once again. And we are at chapter... We're in the middle, well, towards the end of chapter, what is it? 34, I believe? Yeah, chapter 34. And we are, hoping to finish this today. I think I will. I think we will. But we will see. I am feeling a bit sleepy, a bit kind of like not the best. Not the worst. It's not bad. Not bad. It's just that it's a certain time of the month, and my PMDD bitches know how it is. But we should be okay. I think I read a little bit just to test how my reading comprehension is today. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my god, I'm so excited. We were on like in the middle of this chapter called Drunk Fishy, and what happened was Ye Qinghuan came to Prince Jing and brought wine that his grandfather and Prince Jing's father made. And then Prince Jing put the plums that were in the wine on a plate and left the fish unattended. So I am very excited. Hang on, let me just retweet the thing. I'm very excited. Oh my god. Nope, that's not what it is. I'm just so excited. And we're gonna finish this and we're gonna find out if there is actual Empreg. Is there Empreg? I've seen so much fan art by Foxy Joy. Foxy Joy does really, really cute chibi fan art. They've done sticker sheets, like official sticker sheets for TGCF. Do they do it for both MDCS and Heaven Officials? I don't remember. But yeah, their art is so cute, and then they kept drawing them with babies. So I think, do we have babies? I don't know, but I guess we're gonna find out. If we don't, it's, you know, it's all well and good. It'll be canon in my heart. In my heart. Okay. It's been like 3-4 minutes to start. I'm just like waiting a little, giving a bit of time for people to hop in. And to check on my OBS, see if everything's okay. The bitrate has calmed down a little bit. It's still shaky, but before it was like, and now it's like, you know? So I have tea. I hope you have tea or something of the sort. I have tea, I have a book. You should have a puzzle. My favorite thing is to listen to audiobooks or readings or whatever. And to go on that puzzle website. A book and make a puzzle while I listen to a book. It's so fun. It's just so fun. It's my favorite thing. Okay, shall we get started? Let me pop out chat for a bit. Let me just pop out chat is what I mean. What is this rewards enabled for this channel? Apple TV nonsense. Hey! God, I love how it's so difficult to resize the pop-out chat thing. I love how it's so inconvenient. Anyway. Let's get started! Right now, what just happened, Liu shoved a plum into his mouth and carefully bit down. This is right before the scene break. The green plum was sour and sweet, and there seemed to have been a lot of alcohol left in the fruit. The wine was sweet and fragrant, not too strong. He fell in love with the taste at once and immediately picked up another one. So he's getting drunk. Okay, he's having a good time. Okay. Meanwhile, Prince Jing was learning that the soup hadn't helped Yeshizi sober up at all. Yeshizi was holding onto a pillar, crying and sobbing. Prince Jing listened to him wail for a while, blank-faced. This really wasn't something Wang Ji could handle. Prince Jing chopped straight down with his hand, and Ye Qinghuan fell silent. Prince Jing ordered Wang Ji to find a carriage to shove Ye Qinghuan into and send him back to Chang'an Manor, where his people would take care of him. Prince Jing had worked up a sweat handling Ye Qinghuan, but when he remembered that the carp was still in his room, he rushed back without wiping off his sweat, wondering if the spirit had really changed into a human or not. Would Zhao Yu have turned back into a fish already by the time he got back? When he pushed open the barely closed door, he was met with the overwhelming scent of alcohol. The young man he'd met several times before was sitting on the ground in a daze, his face flushed and his eyes unfocused, holding a plate in one hand while he licked the other. There was only one green plum left on the plate. What had happened here? I think we all know what happened. All of Prince Jing's questions returned into a single thought as he laid eyes on the young man. He finally transformed. Prince Jing was a little delighted. He walked over slowly, thinking about what he should say to the human Zhao Yu. No, he couldn't speak. Even if Zhao Yu was human, it was still inconvenient. He forgot that he couldn't speak? I'm sorry. He had to find a brush and paper first. He was so excited to talk to him, or to converse with him. He forgot that he couldn't speak? I love him. Prince Jing paused for a bit and turned to look for the items. But Zhao Yu suddenly giggled, jumped up, and hugged him, nuzzling against him happily. Master, you're back. The young man's voice was soft, even a little nasally. The sudden hug made Prince Jing's heart swoop. At Jingtai Hall, the young man had called him Your Highness, so why was he calling him Master now? Oh, buddy, oh, buddy, oh, buddy. Zhao Yu's cheeks were red, his eyes bright. He carefully picked up the green plum with both hands and tried to shove it into Prince Jing's mouth. With both hands? Prince Jing thought this wasn't quite appropriate, but Zhao Yu was so enthusiastic that he couldn't resist, and he ate it from his hand. The green plum in his mouth was saturated with wine that was much stronger than the wine he had drunk. Prince Jing was surprised. He glanced at the bare plate and the numerous plum pits scattered on the ground. Did Zhao Yu eat almost all of them? He didn't realize the alcohol content in the green plums was so high. His fish was probably drunk off of them. No shit. Okay. Is it yummy? I left it for you, Zhao Yu asked with a smile, lowering his head and nuzzling against Prince Jing's hand. I'm gonna cry. For some reason, Prince Jing nodded. His heart was strangely warmed by the fact that the fish had kept him in mind. Catching a whiff of the strong scent of alcohol on the young man, Prince Jing suddenly realized that this was a drunk fish who had transformed into a human, but forgotten that he transformed. So that was why he called him Master. Such a large young man couldn't be held within the palm of his hand. Prince Jing, you could try. Prince Jing didn't know how to deal with him, so he softly touched the drunk little fish's arm, hoping he would relax. Unexpectedly, the fish just lay down on top of him, as if he had no bones. Prince Jing was caught off guard. He thought his heart was going to jump out of his chest as he held this fragile young man. Oh my god. I'm so sleepy, want to sleep. The little drunk fish pouted and yawned, watery-eyed. He thought he was in his tyrant master's hand, and that Prince Jing was going to pet him, but he was too tired and didn't want to be petted, so he nuzzled against his master's hand instead. Hand is in quotations. He's just... I'm fine. I'm so fine. This is fine. This is fine. Oh my god. Prince Jing had been nuzzled several times by the drunken little fish already, but he still wasn't sure how to react. He felt like the sweat on his back hadn't had a chance to dry yet. After a moment's hesitation, he tentatively circled his arm around the drunken little fish. If he was drunk and wanted to sleep, Prince Jing thought, lying down might make him more comfortable. Oh no. The well-intentioned Prince Jing helped his fish to his bed. The drunken little fish's eyes were almost closed, but he suddenly jerked them open. Not here. Where's my fish tank? The drunken little fish put his hand on his hips and looked around on guard. It's so cute. I am crying. I am crying. Currently, I am crying. Oh my god. Prince Jing obviously couldn't let a person sleep in a fish tank. Luckily, as the drunken little fish squinted and stared at the white sheets on the bed, he mistook it for his white stone bed. He walked over and lay down, kicking the jade pillow aside, forcefully. Prince Jing wanted to wait until the fish was asleep to grab a handkerchief to wipe Zhao Yu's face with. But the little drunken fish had barely closed his eyes before he immediately got up again, rubbing his eyes and demanding, "Where's my leaf blanket?" Prince Jing was baffled. What's a leaf blanket? But he recalled the leaf that he often saw on the little carp's body. That was probably what he wanted. But Prince Jing obviously couldn't fish out a few pieces of wet seaweed for a human to use. After some thought, he scrounged around the room and found a grass-green brocade blanket instead. Prince Jing was sweating profusely as he covered the drunken little fish with the blanket. As the familiar color swept across his vision, Zhao Yu wrapped himself in the blanket, satisfied, and murmured, "Thank you, ornamental mountain." Okay. Prince Jing wasn't sure how to react to that. He wanted to wait until the fish fell asleep, but the drunken little fish got up again. Head wobbled, he stared at the Tyrant Master in front of him for a while before he remembered that he hadn't finished his mission yet. The system said repeated... Oh, the system saying this. Oh my god. The system said repeated actions aren't valid, he said with a disgruntled frown. Prince Jing didn't know what kind of thing a system was, so he was about to write it down, but the drunken little fish cupped the prince's... But the drunken little fish cupped the prince's... Oh, cupped his hands, okay. Cupped the prince's in his hands and giggled. Actually, I don't know if it's the... I think it just says the prince's in his hands. So I don't know if that's his hands or, like, himself. I think it's his whole body, maybe. The little fish's teasing was making Prince Jing's heart beat thunderously in his chest. If the drunken carp spirit wanted to suck essence from him, he thought, he would definitely cooperate. The carp spirit stuck his lips out, moved to either side, and plopped his lips lightly against Prince Jing's throat. Taken by complete surprise, Prince Jing suddenly found himself being nibbled on. Oh, it's so yummy! There's an illustration of this as well on the other page. It's just, that's the end of the chapter. It's Prince Jing being very shocked. And drunk fishy Zhao Yu, not fish Zhao, it's human him, nibbling on his neck. And I love that. I love that very much. This next chapter, chapter 35, is called The Fish Nibbled on Him. When Liu woke up, he was sleeping in his fish tank on his white stone bed covered by his leafy blanket. He rolled over comfortably, then suddenly remembered what happened before he lost consciousness. He turned into a human to eat the green plums, and they were so tasty, but he couldn't help himself. And kept eating them. The plums were soaked in white, and he unsuspectedly swallowed a lot of alcohol. Even though he didn't feel it at first, by the time his mind started to feel fuzzy, there was not much after that. Liu shot up off his white stone bed with a start. Since he didn't remember anything after the dizziness, how did he get back into his fishy body? Did someone else? Did Prince Jing see him? I think so, baby. But he glanced at his leaf blanket and quickly rejected this idea. He was lying securely on his white stone bed and was covered in his leaf blanket. He must have done all that himself after he turned back into a fish. It couldn't have been anyone else. And besides, if Prince Jing saw him transform, he would definitely trap him. He wouldn't let him lie comfortably in his fish tank. 1 second. I need to have my noise cancelling headphones on because the sound of my voice is very loud in my ears right now. My ears are just sensitive right now. And the sound of my computer is not making me very happy. So this is fine. So he must have turned back into a fish before Prince Jing came back and jumped into his fish tank before falling asleep. Liu swam around the tank for a bit. He was a little tired, probably because he'd been drunk, but he felt better after moving around. Liu pressed up to the wall of the crystal tank to observe the room. The mess on the ground had been cleaned up, and Prince Jing was sleeping quietly on his bed. It was as if Liu had never gotten drunk off the green plums. He took a deep breath. Well, no news was good news. He probably hadn't caused any chaos then. He was so terribly anxious about the main mission that now that he was calming down, he wanted to enter the system first thing and check whether Intimate Contact had any new notifications. If not the face, maybe the ears or the throat. You've already done that, my guy. Considering how much Prince Jing spoiled him, he could just go for the nibble and deal with the consequences later. He just wasn't sure which he should choose. He just wasn't sure which one he should choose yet. He didn't expect to be hit with the quest complete notification as soon as he entered the system. What? Wasn't the main quest the only thing in progress right now? Liu clicked open the Tyrant press. Liu clicked open Tyrant's priceless pet fish and found that the main mission, the one that had tortured him for such a long time, had at last been completed. He was just as shocked as he'd been when he first woke up. He immediately took a look at the details of the mission and confirmed that the last step of Intimate Contact had indeed been completed. When and how? Liu was flabbergasted. When you were drunk, the system helpfully informed him. Liu trembled a little. What did he do when he was drunk, and where did he end up biting Prince Jing? He must have nibbled him somewhere, otherwise this step wouldn't be complete. He just didn't know whether it was the ears or the throat. He should at least find out that much before he died. Oh god. You bit the tyrant's Adam's apple. Ah. From now on, Liu thought, he had no respect to speak of. As for whether or not he used his human or fish body to bite him, the system didn't tell him. Liu didn't question it either. He thought it must have been a while he thought it must have been while he was a fish, or he wouldn't have lived long enough to even enter the system. That was at least a blessing in a mountain of misfortunes. The system asked him if he wanted to collect his reward. Since Intimate Contact was the last step of the Tyrant's Priceless Pet Fish main quest, the reward was the final prize for the entire main quest. Liu dragged himself out of his funk and got ready to collect his reward. The reward was all of his stats were doubled. At first glance, all stats sounded a little vague, but Liu's tail's healing ability and other things had been strengthened before all counted. And other things that had been strengthened before all counted as stats for this transmigrated fish, so Liu figured that it was probably related to those. Obviously, he clicked accept. He heard the system pause for a second before it mechanically droned on. Congratulations, user. Your inventory space has increased to 4. Your transformation time has doubled. The strength of your tail has doubled. Your healing has doubled. Liu was ecstatic. He didn't realize that his inventory space and the duration of his transformation could also double. The increase in inventory space meant he could carry a lot more things, and he did a doubling and did the doubling of the transformation and did the doubling of the transformation time mean that it had gone from 1 hour to 2 hours? Liu checked the description of his inventory space and transformation skill and found this was indeed the case. He was so excited that he completely forgot all the distress he was in earlier. Priceless Pet Fish was thus completed, but the next main quest hadn't been updated yet. The system said, "Now, the Moe Pet system will adjust the next main quest to the relationship between the user and the Tyrant Master. After the adjustments, the user will be notified of a new main quest." Liu nodded in understanding. He had done another mission before that had also been adjusted according to his relationship with Prince Jing, so this wasn't new to him. He generously thought that if the system didn't give him a new main mission immediately, it was basically like taking a vacation. That wasn't bad at all. "You've met the conditions to start the side quest, Turn into a Koi," the system reminded him. "Would the user like to begin?" Did that mean he could start on the side quest first? Liu was cannier now. I have no idea what that word means. He asked, "Does this mission have a time limit?" "There is no time limit. The user only needs to complete the quest. Like other side quests, there is no penalty for failure." The side quests were always so tempting that even though Liu had just been thinking about taking a vacation, he accepted it without a moment of thought. "Let's do it then. Please start the side quest for me." Since he'd received his majestic black and gold fish scales, he had been secretly looking forward to becoming a koi for a long time. In the system, the Turn into a Koi side quest lit up for him to select. The side quest was the same as the other fish scamming quests he had done. There wasn't many details, and there was only a single line of explanation. To become a koi, one must have the characteristics of a koi. As mysterious as ever, Liu didn't immediately... Oh no, that was the period. As mysterious as ever. Liu didn't immediately understand, but with all of his experience, he knew that he could just accept the task and leave it for now. No need to rush. There would be time to figure it out and complete it later. As he returned to reality, he was still suffused by the ecstasy of completing the main quest, so he took a leap in the water and swam around happily. There were a lot of things in the crystal fish tank now, other than the white stone bed, aquatic plants, and piles of various jewels. Prince Jing had also set up an ornamental mountain of rocks for him, as well as a rocking chair. A rocking chair for a fish? I'm obsessed with that. Leo paddled over to the rocking chair and rocked in it forcefully for a bit. Perhaps because he was too excited, the rocking chair couldn't contain him anymore, and it shook almost violently. Then Liu slipped into the cave within the ornamental mountain. For some reason, the ornamental mountain was so beautiful today that he couldn't hold himself back, and he ducked into several caves, one after another. The system had strengthened him so much that he didn't bother memorizing all of the stats that had been doubled. He knew he'd be able to discover any useful ones through first-hand experience. Right now, for example, it was clear to him that his swimming speed had increased significantly. Liu played even more recklessly. He often swam around the caves and an ornamental mountain in the fish tank. Usually there was no danger, but for some reason, giddiness gave rise to sorrow. He darted through a narrow cave that he'd always easily swum through before and found himself stuck. What's going on? I used to be super agile when swimming through caves. He looked around carefully and was embarrassed to realize that the size of his body had doubled as well. Oh. He used to be a small, palm-sized carp, small enough to easily fit into one hand. but now he was the size of 2 hands. It was no wonder the rocking chair couldn't hold him anymore. The system had doubled his length and width, too. Leo wiggled fiercely, but he couldn't get out of the cave. Oh no, he's stuck! It seemed that it wasn't just his length and width that had changed, but his height had as well. Most of Leo's body was stuck in the cave, and he couldn't muster up any strength in his tail. Even if he could, knocking down the ornamental mountain would be out of question. The crystal fish tank was taller than a person. Jeez. And the ornamental mountain inside was quite large. If it collapsed, not only would it crush him, it would also make a lot of noise and wake up Prince Jing. The little carp didn't dare move. Someone would definitely find him once it was time to change the water, he thought, so the helpless little carp went back to sleep, right in the hole he was stuck inside. Soon after, Prince Jing woke up to look at his fish and realized Zhao Yu was gone. Shocked, he immediately looked all around the fish tank for him, and found him at last, sleeping soundly in the ornamental mountain. The corners of Prince Jing's mouth twitched, and he poked the fearless fish. Why was he sleeping in the cave instead of sleeping on his perfectly good white stone bed? When the fish spirit had nibbled on Prince Jing's throat last night, Prince Jing had struggled to hold himself back from nibbling the drunk fish back. But the fish lay down on his chest after the deed was done and turned right back into a fish. The clothes he'd been wearing collapsed, suddenly empty. No matter how much Prince Jing was mentally prepared for it, it was still a great shock. Zhao Yu had been thrashing about, uncomfortable out of water. Prince Jing thought the carp had only shown his true form due to being drunk, and he hurriedly put Zhao Yu back into the fish tank. He even remembered that Zhao Yu liked to lie on his bed, enveloped in the leaf blanket, so he carefully put the fish on the white stone bed and wrapped him with the leaf. If the fish woke up and remembered last night, it would be the perfect opportunity to come clean to him. But instead, the fish had dashed straight for the ornamental mountain when he woke up. Prince Jing recalled that the drunk little fish had confusedly called him an ornamental mountain last night. It was both infuriating and hilarious. Once he was poked, Liu woke up. He flapped his tail happily when he saw it was his tyrant master. He struggled but still couldn't get free. He could only look at Prince Jing pitifully, trying to beg for help. Prince Jing had been looking forward to the fish remembering what had happened last night, but Zhao Yu's reactions were simply fish reactions. He sighed. Even what the hell? I just fucked up that so bad. Even Ye Qinghuan almost bumped into pillars when he was drunk. What could he expect a fish to remember? He would just have to keep an eye out for the other opportunities in the future. Xiao Yu flapped his fins, still unable to move. Prince Jing realized now that he was stuck. Torn between laughter and pity, he ordered someone to move the ornamental mountain aside. It took the servants a full 10 minutes to move the mountain, but the naughty little carp was finally out of danger, and he swam out and shook his tail. Why is this so cute? Prince Jing picked him up carefully and examined his body for injuries. The fish was fine, but Prince Jing realized that the reason he'd been stuck was that he'd become much bigger. How did that happen? Prince Jing was able to accept the fact that Xiao Yu was a carp spirit, so growing bigger all of a sudden was hardly out of the question. But Xiao Yu had grown bigger and Xiao Yu had both grown bigger and started growing a new set of scales in such a short period of time. It put Prince Jing on his guard. Was it possible that the carp spirit had run into trouble? Could he be going through the tribulation of the sort of stories were... what? Could he be going through a tribulation of the sort the stories were always mentioning, and it required him to constantly change his form? The books mentioned that the snake spirits and the fox Yao were incredibly weak during the tribulation. Sorry. The, the books mention that the snake spirits and Fox Yao were incredibly weak during their tribulation and needed to be taken care of at that vulnerable time. Prince Jing didn't know how much about these trials and didn't know much about these trials and tribulations, but it was easy for him to take care of the carp spirit. Prince Jing ordered a remodel for the ornamental mountain. The caves, rocking chair, and white stones were all changed to fit Xiao Yu's current shape and size. The crystal fish tank was quite large, so Xiao Yu could still stay there a little longer. When the new fish tank was completed, he could move there instead. The crystal bottle and tea bowls, however, no longer fit him, so they needed to be replaced. When he had organized his thoughts, Prince Jing called over Wang Ji. Wang Ji gasped when he laid eyes on the little carp that had grown so enormously. "Your Highness, how did he become so large?" It was way too fast for a single day. Prince Jing grabbed a handful of food for his fish and glanced at Wang Gonggong calmly. Wang Ji immediately understood what His Highness had meant. "Because I fed him. You got a problem with that?" "If His Highness said so, then so be it." It was all fine as long as there was a reason. Wang Ji immediately shut up and followed Prince Jing's orders. Wait. Prince Jing rang the jade bell again, asking him to come back, then handed him a list of items. Wang Ji glanced at it and was privately startled. It was a list of all kinds of robes, shoes, and socks, which wouldn't have been strange if not for the fact that the size wasn't His Highness's at all. Wang Ji glanced up at His Highness, confused. Prince Jing's face looked normal, except, that is, for the faint red mark on his throat. Wang Ji couldn't have been more shocked. As a servant, he knew very well what a mark like that meant. His Highness seemed to have someone he liked, and it was very possible that they'd been intimate already. But he, who took care of everything in the manor, wasn't aware of it at all, and Prince Jing never mentioned it himself. Was he in such a rush for these clothes because they were for the person he liked? It wasn't impossible. It was so mysterious that it made Wang Ji think of someone. Ever since they returned to the manor from the palace, there was one thing Wang Gonggong couldn't figure out. When they'd last been at Jingtai Hall, he saw a disheveled little minx of a young man entangled with His Highness. Later on, when he quietly asked His Highness about him, Prince Jing told him that the person was the one who'd helped him clear his eyes. Wang Ji was incredibly grateful and only realized afterward that the little minx seemed to be the fish and clothing thief His Highness had been looking for, that male concubine of an unknown family. The male concubine had disappeared later on, and Wang Ji never saw him again. But when they returned to the manor, His Highness withdrew all of the people he'd sent out to look for that male concubine. Did I say concubine? Concubine. My B's and P's are silly. Wang Ji thought it was the least Prince Jing could do, since that young man had helped His Highness. Last night, after he sent the completely wasted Yeshizi back to Chang'an Manor and returned to Prince Jing's residence, he heard someone say that a disheveled young man seemed to be present in His Highness's room. Wang Ji immediately sent the servants away, but the next day there was this red mark on Prince Jing's throat, and he immediately thought of the male concubine. After all, he was the only one Wang Ji had seen entangled with a prince before. He was happy to run errands for Master Fish, but when His Highness asked him to order clothes, no matter how he thought about it, the clothes were probably for the male concubine. His Highness was not only raising a fish, but also hiding a lover, someone else's concubine at that, and he didn't seem to have any intention of revealing it. Wang Ji was conflicted. He felt both happy and worried, but his loyalty towards Prince Jing left him with no choice but to turn a blind eye to it. He sucked it up and ordered the clothes. Then had them put in the designated wardrobe in Prince Jing's room. Sorry, I'm getting a little sleepy. I woke up like 4 hours ago. As for where the male concubine lived, that remained a mystery to Wang Ji. He believed that His Highness would allow them to meet one day. When Liu was eating his fish food, he also noticed the red mark on Prince Jing's throat and felt his face heat up immediately. If that wasn't a mark of being nibbled by a fish, any marks left on the tyrant's body were always incredibly visible. It probably wasn't as bad as it looked, but Liu knew that he blacked out and had no sense of boundaries when he was drunk, so perhaps he had taken a pretty fierce bite. He nibbled Prince Jing, but he couldn't let Prince Jing nibble him back. Oh boy, I think it's gonna happen whether you like it or not. But he's gonna like it. Anyway. Liu apologized silently and turned around and grabbed a piece of peach blossom pastry to offer Prince Jing. Prince Jing didn't touch the pastry. He just tapped on the fish's head with a smile. Liu's head felt itchy, but why wouldn't his master let him know what tapping on his head meant? Liu's appetite had doubled along with the size of his fishy body. After he finished eating his fish food, he quietly dragged back the peach blossom pastry he had put out as an apology. He had no choice. Fish got hungry if they didn't eat. Stupid. Prince Jing also realized he ate more now. Not only was he not mad at Liu for eating the plate of green plums, he also started putting a lot of other delicious, beautiful snacks in his room, as if he was deliberately teasing the fish. Liu couldn't resist the temptation at all. He would end up craving whatever was left out. Prince Jing seemed to be busy recently, as he kept going out, only to return hurriedly at night, so whenever he saw something he wanted to eat, Liu would turn into a human and eat it. He had enough time to turn into a human and turn back into a fish without worrying. It was fine, he thought as he munched away. He was on vacation. Once after transforming, he was flipping through the closet when he found several new sets of robes, shoes, and socks. These were very different from the ones Prince Jing usually wore, and there was a note inside that said the clothes from Prince Jing's younger days had been temporarily placed here because they were clearing out clothes. That note was for him! Oh my, you don't think it's a little suspicious that there's a fucking note there? Ridiculous. These clothes certainly didn't look old to Liu, but he figured since Prince Jing was a prince in ancient times, several new sets of clothing were made for every season. There were a lot more unworn clothes than worn ones. It was possible these were the robes the prince had simply never worn. They had been dried and were very clean. The size fit him so well, so Liu chose a light gold robe embroidered with green leaves and paired it with snow-white socks and shoes. Wait, I need to snapshot this. The light gold robe embroidered with green leaves and paired it with snow-white socks and shoes. Okay. He'd always been barefoot when he turned into a human before, and getting to wear shoes and socks was a rare novelty, so he happily put them on. After he got dressed, Liu would sit down and choose his favorite snacks to eat. Sometimes there would be a pot of tea at the perfect temperature on the table. Prince Jing wouldn't drink cold tea and would have the servants change the tea if it became cold. Liu thought it was going to be wasted if he didn't drink it, so he would secretly pour some out to eat with his snacks to balance out the sweetness. And now I'm hungry. What the hell? Someone had put a bronze mirror next to the closet for some reason too. The first thing Liu usually did after transforming was put clothes on, and things were much more complete with the mirror. He often strutted around in front of the mirror, grimacing or smiling. Stupid. But he still remembered the auntie who was punished for helping him in the manor. Those without an identity shouldn't go outside and wander around. He was satisfied with some tea and snacks. Leo was merely reveling. No. Oh, Leo was merely relieving his boredom, and he didn't begin to suspect that the copper mirror was reflecting everything he did to the room next door. In that room, only separated by a thin wall, Prince Jing was watching him. He'd seen a human turn into fish, so he wanted to see a fish turning into a human. He knew that Xiao Yu would never transform in front of him, so he pretended to leave in order to give him space, but he found that once his gaze was glued on Xiao Yu, he couldn't take it off. Whenever Xiao Yu put clothes on, Prince Jing had to look down. He wanted to see, but it didn't feel right. Xiao Yu had nibbled him, and he wanted to nibble back. Eee! Oh, that's the end of that chapter. That is the end of that chapter. The next chapter is called Fish Wants to Dual Cultivate. And I'm going to take a short little break. I might have to take 2 breaks today. Just to replenish on tea, because we're probably going to go for a little longer today. And I need hot tea to do these readings because my throat, again, I said this before, but I'll say it again. My throat is messed up just by the way it is, and me being autistic and EDS and blah 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 connective tissue bullshit. So I will replenish my tea, and I also have to feed the dog, so I might be a little longer than usual. Usually we just, I believe, I actually don't ever check, but I think it's usually like 5 minutes. We might go a little tiny bit longer today, but yeah, I will be right back. Alright, we are back. Let me just catch my breath from standing to sitting down transition. I am disabled, just so you know. Oi, I'm sorry, I hit the mic. There's so much, like, I don't know, I say that every time I'm like, oh, I'm out of breath because, you know, it's like not because I'm not athletic, which I am not athletic because I am disabled. It's like, yeah. Anyway, we have tea. I have tea. Put the dogs. I don't know. I feel like people make fun of people for panting excessively when it's like it's literally a disability causing it most likely. That's some weird ableism. I mean, I don't really think that way. No, what I'm saying is I feel like I have to make a disclaimer every time I do that. But it's a little silly because it's a little ableist of me to have to make a disclaimer of it. Anyway, I'm just in circles, running in circles. Alright. We're on chapter 36. Oh boy. Oh boy. Fish wants to dual cultivate. Alright. Whatever you say, Fish. Whatever you say. Let's see if the endbreak actually happens. Alright. Prince Jing didn't know why he felt such affection toward Zhao Yu. He only met him a few times in human form, and they'd barely exchanged words. It's true. In the beginning, he was a little curious about the young man who kept managing to escape from him, but he definitely shouldn't care this much. After he learned that the young man who saved him was his Xiao Yu, who kept him company day and night, though, Prince Jing couldn't stop thinking about him. Because regardless if he was a fish or human, Xiao Yu was always the one who was willing to treat him with sincerity. Over time, he had hid and spied on Xiao Yu like this. Prince Jing was able to learn many of his secrets. Goodness, he's so creepy. I love him. I love him. Technically, sorry, that was loud. Technically, Xiao Yu was doing all this too, but just as a fish. You know, he was kind of spying on Prince Jing too. Anyway, where was I? Xiao Yu loved to eat. Prince Jing had known this ever since he discovered the fish's enthusiasm for peach blossom pastries. So in recent days, he spoiled the fish with plenty of tasty food. He would watch as Xiao Yu secretly transformed for just a bite. But Xiao Yu would only transform once a day, and no matter how much time the prince left for him, the little fish would turn back. The little fish would turn back after 2 hours. Once he changed back, he wouldn't turn into a human again, no matter how delicious the food was. Xiao Yu himself seemed reluctant to change back, however, so Prince Jing felt it must not be because the little fish didn't want to change into a human again, but because he couldn't. Thus, Prince Jing theorized that the fish could only transform once a day for 2 hours. Ow. Sorry, my tea is too hot to drink. I left it on the counter while I was taking the dogs out to poop. So I thought it would cool down a little bit. After he came up with this theory, Prince Jing's mood took a hit. The carp spirit would transform to eat, but he never wanted to meet his owner. Prince Jing thought back to the first time he saw Zhao Yu's human form. It seemed he'd wanted to go to the kitchens to eat then too, and if his eyes hadn't been injured last time, Zhao Yu wouldn't have transformed to save him. Even the letter to Ye Qinghuan had come from Zhao Yu via Zhongfeng. Prince Jing suddenly realized that he was no better than a snack or a bowl of rice to his fish. He's a snack, alright. Okay, no. However, this simple-minded fish had not yet realized that his identity was exposed and was currently diligently cleaning up to hide the fact. Through the bronze mirror, Prince Jing watched as the fish rearranged the disorganized snacks, crumbling up the fruit petals and crumbs and then scattering them into inconspicuous corners. The carp spirit, whether it was fish or human, was quite smart and vigilant. He never ate fresh fruits, which were hard to clean up. He mainly ate smaller snacks that could be stuffed into his stomach without leaving any debris behind. Xiaoyu obviously wanted to hide it from him, but he remained at the prince's side. If he realized that Prince Jing had found him out, he might run away again. Thinking back to the fish's methods, they were always careless oversights. But if one wasn't attentive, it was easy to be fooled. Prince Jing had been tricked this way and could sympathize. He was glad now that Xiaoyu didn't remember anything after he passed out. If he had, then Prince Jing might not have been able to find him again. After much thought, Prince Jing decided to suppress the urge to tell Xiaoyu what he knew and stay... After much thought, Prince Jing decided to suppress the urge to tell Xiaoyu what he knew and stay just the way they were for the time being. He needed an opportunity first. It had to be an opportunity that would guarantee Xiaoyu would never leave, so until then he couldn't do anything impulsive that might scare Xiaoyu away. The books Ye Qinghuan had given him always mentioned that humans and Yao were different. Prince Jing resented that sentiment. Even people were different from each other. He was no weak scholar, and Xiaoyu was a fish that he kept by his side at all times. He would never allow them to be separated. Tea break. Tea break on my burnt tongue. But he still didn't know how much... Start over. But he still didn't know much about Yao or carp spirit. Spirits. I don't know why I put the at the end. Prince Jing ordered servants to collect classic books on supernatural beings and Taoism. He wanted to know more about the carp spirit. For example, that systome... I don't know what that means. Sistome. Zhao Yu had mentioned when he was drunk. Did he mention that? I don't remember this. Genuinely, I don't remember this. He didn't know what kind... Oh, system! System! Oh my god. It's written... Oh my god, it's so silly. System. He didn't know if Xiaoyu needed to go through one. Oh, no, I skipped a sentence. He didn't know what kind of tome this was. And as for trials and tribulations, he didn't know if Xiaoyu needed to go through one, but it was clear Ye Qinghuan's books weren't enough. So his confidant found some ancient books and were supposed to be very useful to Prince Jing. Prince Jing decided to get started immediately. He was very busy, in quotations, these days, leaving early and returning late, and when he did return, he would bury his head in a book, making his pet fish quite dissatisfied. He felt like he hadn't seen his master in a long time. Liu swam around in his crystal fish tank, suppressing his mischievous impulses, and wondering what book Prince Jing was reading this time. If he was reading another scandalous book, he wanted to read it too. Masters should share good things. Why was he being left out? After Liu got bigger, the tea bowls for him to jump around in the room had also had to be larger. He always created a large splash when he jumped into one, and Prince Jing noticed him as soon as he jumped out. The prince smiled to himself when he saw the trail of splashes the carp spirit left behind as he jumped happily from bowl to bowl, knowing that Xiaoyu was interested. He set up the book properly and pretended to concentrate. I'm too excited. My words are jumbling. Liu quickly reached the table The petal-shaped tea bowl he usually sat in had been swapped out as well, and the bowl he landed in now was a full lotus flower. Aw, that's cute. Landed in was now a full lotus flower, over twice as large as the old one. Prince Jing had the lotus bowl carved specially out of red jade, so it looked vibrant and lifelike under the sun. While in the lotus bowl, the little carp looked like he was actually sitting on top of a lotus flower, and since Prince Jing had noticed that the fish was especially fond of green leaves, he had the craftsman attach a ring of lotus leaves to the bottom of the bowl, made of jasper, to make it look even more lifelike. That is so cute. Ugh. The little carp fell in love with it immediately. Prince Jing has good taste. In everything. Honestly, I stand Prince Jing. I also, I should have done this at the beginning. I went to the back of the book and there are pronunciation guides for certain characters that I did not notice before. And apparently his name is pronounced Mu Tian Chi, like the I isn't really pronounced so much. So I should have done that at the beginning. But we're a little silly here, so it is what it is. Yeah, I fell in love with it immediately. It wasn't the first time they were reading together, and Liu confidently swam to the edge of the tea bowl and tried to stretch his head out to peer at the book Prince Jing was currently reading. The book looked extremely old, and several pages were about to fall off. Liu thought that the book was probably older than Prince Jing and must be telling the story of some 1,000-year-old spirit. Prince Jing noticed that his fish was trying to stretch his head out, so he picked up the lotus bowl and the fish together and placed them in front of him, facing the book. That way, his fish could read easily too. And if Xiao Yu had transformed right then, he would have been encircled by Prince Jing's arms. He's thinking. Prince Jing couldn't help imagining it for a moment. With a faint joy that only he was privy to, he started reading with the fish again. Liu was happy that Prince Jing was so willing this time, and he thought he could finally witness the elegance of ancient R18 material, but he spent the longest time trying his hardest to read it, and he wasn't able to understand a single line. How awkward! I was tricked, the little carp thought. This wasn't a novel at all. It wasn't even a book on the art of war or travel log. This was a book on the cultivation of immortality. Didn't the system say that the male lead status as the protagonist wouldn't be affected, that Prince Jing could still become the emperor? Why had Prince Jing started reading books about cultivating immortality? Did Prince Jing, a proper male lead in a historical political drama novel, want to cultivate instead of becoming the emperor? That was way too hard. Liu never read cultivation stories. This was making Liu pretty worried. He snuck a glance at Prince Jing, afraid that he was really changing paths and wanted to become an immortal. Prince Jing's expression was solemn and concentrated, unlike Liu, who couldn't understand a single line. Though Prince Jing was mute, he was talented. He read this book quickly and even seemed to understand it. If he kept reading, he might ascend. Stupid. That's so stupid. Oui. Liu quickly flicked a bit of water into the book. He had to quickly chase away any ideas Prince Jing had of becoming immortal. Cultivation was too difficult. He was Sorry, my throat's closing up. It was exhausting, and there was no good food to eat. If things went wrong, he might even lose his life. His tyrant master couldn't go off and cultivate no matter what. Prince Jing watched as the old tome he'd spent an enormous amount of money to purchase was callously splashed with water. He glanced helplessly at his fish as Xiao Yu threw a tantrum. Perhaps the fish spirit had been alive for such a long time that he didn't care to read such simple books. Prince Jing switched to an even more difficult book. Liu was just about to flap his tail triumphantly for defeating the cultivation book when he realized that Prince Jing had switched to a book about concocting pills of immortality. You can't eat pills willy-nilly. You can't read books willy-nilly either. Liu flapped about, getting Prince Jing's ancient book almost completely drenched. Prince Jing pulled out the last book with a dark expression. Liu glanced at it. Dual cultivation? Dual cultivation? Liu's eyes widened. This was too much of a test. Even though he didn't read cultivation books, he definitely knew what dual cultivation meant. The edge of the book were almost worn away, so it must be a very deep topic. But dual cultivation? This little carp was quite conflicted. In the end, he raised his head. Ah, you have this type of book too? I want to see. Prince Jing's gaze changed slightly. Zhao Yu really did want to dual cultivate with him. But then, why hadn't he started yet? Yeah, me too book. This is ellipses. This is ... Oh my god, me too. Yeah, me too. He's so ready. Your Highness, Wang Ji softly called from outside the room. The little carp had transformed the book into a wet book. Prince Jing gave up on fighting with the fish for the book, let go of it, and lightly jingled the jade bell. When Wang Ji entered, the little carp had slipped back into the lotus bowl. He didn't see anything. Oh my god, this is so stupid. Wang Ji's expression was serious. Your Highness, there was a fire in Zhongcui Palace last night. Concubine Cho, it's actually Cho. Concubine Cho was injured. Uh-oh. That's the end of chapter 36. The next chapter is 37, and the next chapter after that is 38, and that is the end of the book. Guys, we only have 2 chapters left. How are we getting by these so fast? What the hell? I feel like I barely read. Oh, man. Chapter 37 is called Golden Fish Finger. Concubine Cho? Liu couldn't remember who that was at first. The original book didn't mention that many concubines of the emperor, and he only remembered a couple. Prince Jing, however, knew who it was. Concubine Cho, who had been demoted from noble consort just a short while ago. The second prince, the Marquis of An, now, had no chance of inheriting the throne. The only reason that Concubine Cho was simply demoted rather than banished to the Cold Palace was because the emperor wanted to preserve the dignity of the Marquis of An. Cold Palace has a footnote. The Cold Palace is a prison found in most modern back palace media that concubines are banished to after falling out of favor with the emperor, usually after committing some kind of crime or offense. This is not a place that existed in real history. Okay. Fictional place. But it seems like Concubine Cho had still not given up. It had been a long time since there was a fire in the palace, and it wasn't the season for fires. Besides, if Zhongcui Palace caught fire and burned, it must have been for a reason. Prince Jing noticed the fish's confusion and tapped his fingers on the table 3 times. Wang Ji was surprised. This meant that he was to explain in further detail. Since His Highness had grown up, he rarely made such a request. Normally, His Highness understood after just a few words. So today, why did he... Though Wang Ji was confused, he still responded diligently. Concubine Cho... Concubine Cho is the mother of His Highness, the second prince, as well as the former noble consort. She originally lived in Zhongcui Palace. At midnight last night, a fire broke out in Zhongcui Palace. The night attendant found that she was injured. Luckily, though, most of Zhongcui Palace was burned in the fire, so it did not spread. And the emperor and other palaces are safe. So the Cho woman mentioned was the former noble consort Cho? Liyu's eyes brightened. He was growing so round recently from eating and resting well that he almost forgotten about the noble consort. There's literally an uwu. It's written it. I'm gonna kill myself. There was a literal uwu in this book. U-W-U. U-W-U. 2 capital U's. No punctuation after. After Wang Gonggong's explanation, he was all caught up. The place Concubine Cho lived in had caught fire, and she was injured. But how did it catch fire when the palace was so heavily guarded? Liu recalled a scene from the original book. Concubine Cho hadn't been rejected by the emperor so early, but instead became a cannon fodder casualty in the fight between the second and third princes. In an attempt to help the second prince regain the emperor's favor after he'd lost power, she burned herself to earn the emperor's pity. But the third prince and his cohort exposed her. Concubine Cho and the second prince ended up completely losing the emperor's trust. The house of Chang'an was well protected. Concubine Cho and the second prince had been imprisoned by the emperor, and the possibility of the second prince inheriting the throne was all but gone. Was Concubine Cho still adamant that she'd resort to this brutal trick? It wasn't impossible, but in the book, only a certain room was burned, and the fire was quickly extinguished. Very different from what Wang Ji had said about most of Zhongcui Palace catching fire. It's gonna trip me up every time. Had the previous plot been altered so much that Concubine Cho was even more crazed than before? While Liu ruminated in his bowl, Prince Jing grabbed the brush and ink on the table before him to ask Wang Ji, "Where is Concubine Cho injured, and how are the others in Zhongcui Palace? How did the fire start?" Wang Ji punched himself lightly. "My apologies for not being clearer. Concubine Cho's injury was on her arm, and everyone else in Zhongcui Palace is fine, other than some minor injuries suffered by the ones who put out the fires." The emperor was already investigating the cause of the fire. No results yet, but there are rumors in the palace that a servant of Zhongcui Palace accidentally knocked over an oil lamp in the servants' quarters and burned a bed curtain. Prince Jing gave a cold laugh. The servants' quarters were usually very far from the master's room, so how could Concubine Cho be the sole casualty? And though Concubine Cho had been demoted to her, and her status was nowhere close to what it was before, she was still the master of Zhongcui Palace. If the master was injured, why were her servants safe? What kind of logic was that? "This old servant believes things are not simply as they seem," said Wang Qi. "The servants are all fine, but they weren't able to protect their only master? That could make no sense. Could it be that the noble consort That's not right. This old servant almost said the wrong thing. Could it be that that concubine Cho inflicted the injury upon herself? Why do you say that's not right, almost say the wrong thing, and then say it anyway? Okay. Liu thumped his tail a bunch of times. What Wang Gonggong said made sense. He thought the same thing. At first he hadn't been sure that concubine Cho was up to no good, but the details Wang Ji mentioned did indeed present a contradiction, and another was that, according to Wang Gonggong, the fire should have been quite large. So how could the injury be restricted to her arm? The more Liu thought about it, the more he found the situation suspicious. This master has nothing to do with our manor. This matter has nothing to do with our manor. Wang Gonggong continued. But since the palace caught fire, your highness should still visit the emperor. I've received news that the third and sixth princes have already entered the palace, and the second, the Marquis of An, also sent a letter of well wishes. Damn, he can't even see his own mom. That's sad. Prince Jing understood what he meant. He nodded. I'll go make the prep. I'll go make the preparations now. As for Master Fish, Wang Ji glanced at the little carp, not sure what Prince Jing wanted to do. Liu wanted to go too. He'd been stuck in the manor for a while, and hadn't caused any trouble, always being a good pet. Prince Jing noticed that the carp spirit's tail was lifted high behind him, almost creating a breeze with its flapping. He smiled at Wang Ji. Let's do as we always have. That meant he would take his fish with him wherever he went. Wang Ji rushed to grab the crystal bottle. The bottle had been remade to be as large as a small bird cage, and the chain was still wrapped around the handle to prevent it from slipping. Prince Jing put his fish into the crystal bottle himself, and added a lot of snacks in case the fish got hungry. If it wasn't for Wang Ji persuading him in a low voice, Prince Jing might have filled up the entire crystal bottle with snacks. That's gotta be really heavy. That thing is full of water? Crazy. Wang Gongong sighed. Why did it seem like Prince Jing's affections for the fish had doubled in size with the fish himself? Oh my god. All the concubines and Prince Jing, all the concubines and princes were at Chanqing Palace. The emperor had ordered I can never say these in the same. It's so difficult to say this. I don't know why. The emperor had ordered an imperial physician to visit concubine Cho. The imperial physician reported that her arm was not in good condition, burnt to a bloody mess. He was afraid that she might not be able to fully recover. That's so awful. Burns hurt so much. The emperor froze. He had been extremely disappointed with concubine Cho before, but the imperial physician's description reminded him of the past. The first year concubine Cho entered the palace, she would often wear a dance outfit in private to try and please him. She was only 16 then, and her jade-like arms were bright as the moon. So many years had passed in a flash. The emperor couldn't help the waves of nostalgia as he reflected on how much time had passed. Later, he received a letter from the Marquis of An, which Mu Tianzhao had written with blood, acknowledging his mistakes. Bro. He said he dared not ask for forgiveness, but he worried about concubine Cho's condition and asked the emperor to allow him to fulfill his filial duties before her sickbed. That's fair. But it also seems like they're plotting something? I don't know. Mu Tianzhao was very sincere, and his love for his mother was obvious. The emperor had originally hardened his heart against the Marquis of An, but he was a little moved now. The concubine next to him were keen observers. Oh, what? There was no punctuation there. Why did I split that? The concubines next to him were keen observers and realized that the emperor was feeling pity for these two. Nobody dared say anything except to echo their agreement. The third prince didn't want to just watch as the Marquis of On came back to join the fun again, and he nearly spoke up several times, but the sixth prince managed to persuade him to sit back with a soft voice. Right now, the sixth prince reminded his brother, the emperor, was thinking about all the things he appreciated about concubine Cho and the Marquis of On. If anyone mentioned their faults, it would make the emperor unhappy. Why am I feeling like the sixth prince is in on it too? The third prince was enraged. Was the Marquis of On still going to keep him down even though he was on house arrest? The sixth prince gently nudged the third prince, urging him to wait and stay calm. Head eunuch Luo Rishan came to report that Prince Jing had arrived. The emperor put down the Marquis of On's letter and ordered Prince Jing to enter. It wasn't news to the palace that Prince Jing was taking care of a fish. He'd brought his fish to the palace this time too. Prince Jing's fish had left a deep impression on the emperor. He even rewarded the fish several times. The emperor's mood improved a little when he thought about how Prince Jing took care of his pet. Prince Jing performed a formal greeting first. The huge crystal bottle could no longer fit in his sleeve, so he held it in his hand. Seeing the bottle, which was clearly much larger than before, as well as the fish, who was also much larger than before, the emperor wasn't sure what to say. Liu was a smart fish and swam in circles to show his respects for the emperor. As a result, the emperor caught a glimpse of the gold on the little carp's belly and tail and said in amazement, "Tianchi, your fish." At a glance, like Yeshizi, the emperor first thought Prince Jing had gotten another fish. Wang Ji always followed Prince Jing. Prince Jing glanced at him, so Wang Ji immediately kowtowed and responded for him. "Your Imperial Majesty, the fish His Highness is raising has changed scales and grown larger." Did fish change scales? The emperor had never heard of such a thing before. He was curious enough to be distracted from thinking about the pitiful concubine Cho and the Marquis of An, and immediately ordered Prince Jing to bring the fish closer so he could take a look. Prince Jing agreed. Upon closer inspection, the emperor realized that it was indeed the same fish, but a few of its scales had turned golden. The emperor stared at the golden scales on the little carp for a long time. The emperor looked at head eunuch Luo Rusheng. "What do you think?" Head eunuch Luo, who knew the emperor well, smiled and said, "This servant is uncultured and cannot say, but I believe a fish with good scales is a good omen." The emperor laughed brightly. "I think so too. It should be a sign of peace for our country and the people." The emperor's bad mood was only because of his concerns for concubine Cho and the Marquis of An. If they couldn't find out the case of the fire, it could be regarded as a warning from the heavens. He would have to take the blame himself. Now that he saw the golden scales, the emperor breathed a sigh of relief. If there was a good omen, who dared say otherwise? Liu was dumbfounded. He just grew a few new scales on his belly, but the emperor somehow arrived at the conclusion that meant the country and people would be at peace. I'm gonna read that again. He just grew a few scales. Nope, again. He just grew a few new scales on his belly, but the emperor somehow arrived at the conclusion that meant the country and people would be at peace. The emperor sure knew how to make up a bunch of crap. As soon as Prince Jing arrived, the emperor remembered the foolish things the Marquis of An had done in the past. His heart did soften for a moment because of concubine Cho's injury, but if he pardoned the Marquis of An just because of this, then he'd be nothing more than a befuddled old man of an emperor. How would he explain himself to Empress Xiao Hui when he met her again underground? It was true that concubine Cho had accompanied him for many years, But didn't Empress Xiaohui give her life for him and their children? He didn't have to spare much. He didn't have to spare much thought as to how he was going to deal with concubine Cho. Since she was injured, her relatives could visit her at the palace, but the Marquis of An's mistake could not be written off so easily. If the Marquis of An wanted to fulfill his filial duty, he would have to come to the palace and take care of her while still bearing the burden of his crimes. He could convert to vegetarianism and commit to Buddhism, or he would ask his wife to take care of concubine Cho in his place. As long as he was sincere, there were lots of ways to show it. Once more, concubine Cho only injured her arm, but the Marquis of An was kicking up a fuss as if she were on her deathbed. Doing something as ominous as writing a letter in blood was like asking for her situation to get worse. That is really weird, you gotta admit it. The Emperor squashed his sympathy for concubine Cho and glanced back at the Marquis of An's letter, which now seemed to him like he was trying to use the opportunity to escape his punishment. The letter that he'd been about to immediately approve, was now held back instead. The guards entered to report the results of the investigation into the fire. It was rumored that a servant's room in Zhongshui Palace was most heavily burned, so they came to the conclusion that that was where the fire started. Huanhua, concubine Chio's personal servant, was one of the ones living in this room, but after the fire was put out, Huanhua had disappeared. Nobody had seen her, and the imperial guards were unable to find her. The emperor sensed something off about that. Even if the fire started because of her, a servant shouldn't be able to hide so well that the imperial guards couldn't find her. If she was alive, they ought to find her, and if she was dead, they ought to find her body. The emperor asked for the location of Huanhua's room. When he learned that it was a fair distance away from the main courtyard where concubine Cho lived, his face immediately darkened. The third prince finally saw his opportunity and gave his mother, Consort Chan, a look. Consort Chan promptly covered her mouth with a handkerchief and said, smiling, "Concubine Cho is so unlucky. Nobody else was hurt, but she was burned that badly, even though she was so far away." The emperor glared at Consort Chan. She had taken the risk of speaking and privately glanced back at the third prince, angrily quieting herself. The emperor became even more upset. He knew what Consort Chan said was true, or he wouldn't have had such a cold expression. Even the other concubines could tell that there was trickery behind concubine Cho's injury. She was injured by the fire even though she was so far away, and she might also have known that an arm injury would particularly upset the emperor. The emperor had spent his whole life believing he was wise, but he was almost played by a woman. Wow. Since most of Zhongshui Palace had burned down, concubine Cho was moved to the nearby Yuzhu Palace. Yuzhu. Okay. The emperor decided to pay her a visit in person and asked everyone to come with him. Concubine Cho lay on the bed, but her back couldn't stop crying out in pain. What am I saying? Concubine Cho lay on the bed on her back and couldn't stop crying out in pain. When she heard the announcement of the emperor's arrival, she was overjoyed. She draped a robe around her shoulders and was helped out of the bed by her most trusted servants to greet the emperor formally. The emperor was a little suspicious of her and went straight into her room to take a closer look at her, only to see that she was still wearing elegant makeup and her hair was combed up into a delicate style, wearing a dress she had worn when she danced for him back in the day. She had clearly been preparing and was waiting for him to come comfort her. The emperor's heart turned cold. He ordered the imperial physician to examine concubine Cho's injuries in front of him. What's more, although everyone had accompanied the emperor to concubine Cho's quarters, custom dictated that everyone except the emperor wait outside her room. So wait they did. Prince Jing was afraid that Xiao Yu would feel suffocated, so he opened the bottle. Xiao Yu immediately swam to the mouth of the bottle. Liu had been watching for a while and noticed that the plot had slightly changed. The small fire had somehow turned into a large fire. Prince Jing brought his fish to the palace for some reason. But what? Prince Jing brought his fish into the palace, and for some reason the third and sixth prince didn't expose concubine Cho. Overall, however, concubine Cho's plot was still similar to the one in the original book. Since she had hurt herself on purpose, checking her injury would change nothing, as her arm was truly injured. He had gotten the golden finger and knew the answer to the question. But how was he going to tell Prince Jing in a short amount of time? Prince Jing could be hard towards Yeshiji, but it was only on the surface, and he truly saw him as a close relative at heart. He definitely wouldn't want the Marquis of An to come back. If the Marquis of An wasn't completely stamped out, it would be bad news for both the House of Chang'an and Prince Jing. Liu lay on the narrow mouth of the bottle, thinking so hard that he got lost in his thoughts and forgot that he had grown so much. And the crystal bottle flipped over. Oh my goodness. After a moment of shock, Prince Jing scooped up the little carp. Wang Ji, without missing a beat, said to everyone, "My apologies, His Highness needs to change." And that is the end of the chapter. And we have one chapter left of this whole book. And I need to go to the bathroom real quick. Maybe get some more tea. I will be right back and we will finish this book. Eee! Okay, BRB. My mouse. Where's my mouse? Where's my mouse? My mouse turned off. My mouse. Mousy. Mousy, where are you? Where are you, Mousy? Oh, there it is. Okay. BRB. I'm back. Welcome to me. Welcome back to me. Yippee. I forgot to lock the door. 1 second. Okay, yippee. No interruptions. Last frickin' chapter. Last chapter. We're on the last chapter. And thankfully, the next book comes out on the 6th, I think, of this month. So what, in 4 days? In 4 days? I don't know when it's gonna be on the shelves by then. But I will get it as soon as possible, and we are reading it. I don't even have to... I don't even have to look for a new series to read before we start on the second book. Oh, I have perfect timing! Oh my god. I just mixed my tea, like, I had some tea left, and it was already getting cold, so I just added a bit of hot water and more, tea to it. And so it's not too hot. Yummy! That's actually a nice blend, because I had like a lemon tea in there, but then I added the yuzu jam. Anyway, let's get started again. Chapter 38, aka the last chapter of this book. My name is Liu. Prince Jing carried his fish into the warm room of the side hall. Ever since Prince Jing started keeping a fish as a pet, Wang Ji had gotten into the habit of bringing a spare change of clothes when they went out. So as he was about to enter the room with Prince Jing, he readied the clothes. However, Prince Jing took the clothes from him first and asked Wang Ji to stand guard outside and not let anyone approach. Wang Ji was perplexed, but he complied. Luckily, Prince Jing's manor had made more than one crystal bottle. There were several identical ones in case of emergency. Prince Jing quickly put the little carp into another crystal bottle filled with clear water and looked around. Fortunately, he and Xiao Yu were the only ones in the warm chamber in the side hall. No one would interrupt them. Oh dear. He remembered the first time he brought Xiao Yu to greet the emperor. His fish had drenched him in water, and he had no choice but to go change his clothes. When he returned, he saw the noble consort Cho and her son freshly disheveled. Back then, he thought it was just a coincidence, but when he realized Xiao Yu was a carp spirit, it occurred to him that it was very likely that Xiao Yu had made him leave on purpose in order to punish those two. Now Xiao Yu had gotten his clothes wet again. Did he want to tell him something? It was actually an accident this time. Stupid. But how was the fish going to communicate? Prince Jing secretly hoped that the carp spirit would transform and tell him in person. He waited and waited, but Xiao Yu didn't transform. Prince Jing thought that he might have misunderstood, and Xiao Yu didn't actually have anything to tell him. Prince Jing hadn't changed his clothes since he entered the room, so he decided to change first. The little carp had been swimming in circles anxiously in the crystal bottle. He knew that Prince Jing had been staring at him, but it wasn't that he didn't want to say anything. The answer was too complicated for a fish to express. Knocking over the crystal bottle had just been an accident. He hadn't thought of anything yet. Sob, sob, sob. Liu continued to think harder. Liu continued to think hard, paddling the water irritably with his fins, when he suddenly realized that Prince Jing had turned his back to him. Liu's attention was immediately diverted. What was the Tyrant Master going to do? The little carp immediately pressed himself against the side of the crystal wall. The bottom of Prince Jing's robes had been splashed when the crystal bottle upended itself, so he was changing. Since he thought of Xiao Yu as human now, Prince Jing turned around in habit and undid his jade buttons. He was changing, but he was paying attention to his fish out of the corner of his eyes. Okay, it's not picking up on the mic, but there's somebody's blending some coffee. I think it's grinding some coffee beans or whatever. Can you hear it? I don't think you can hear it. It's fine. It's whatever. Where were we? It just says he was near the corner of his eyes. He was changing, but he was changing, but he was paying attention to his fish out of the corner of his eyes when he noticed the formerly swimming figure had stopped moving. Prince Jing immediately turned around. The little carp was pressed up against the crystal wall, staring at him with his dark fish eyes. They stared at each other in silence. Liu, now experienced, hurriedly swam to the other side of the crystal bottle, his tail pointed toward Prince Jing, pretending he was just passing by. Was the fish watching? Prince Jing suddenly realized something, his lips quirking up into a mischievous smirk at the wildly swinging fishtail. What was wrong with him watching? There was nothing that couldn't... What was wrong with him watching? There was nothing that couldn't be seen. Prince Jing stepped forward and forcefully grabbed Liu's tail, turning him around. Oh my god! Turning him around so that the little carp, trying to escape, was now pointed towards him. The fish looked at his tyrant master in surprise, as he changed in front of him, without any hesitation. Don't do this, thought the shocked little carp. My fish eyes are going to go blind. It seemed like he was resisting, but he couldn't stop himself from watching, silently counting his master's abs. Oh my god! Perhaps because he was stimulated by the delicious sight of Prince Jing changing, Liu's feverish brain came up with an idea that wasn't really an idea. Since the incident came so suddenly this time, it was impossible for him to make any preparations like a secret letter, since Prince Jing was right in front of him. The easiest way would be to transform into a human and expose concubine Cho directly. But how was he going to transform right under Prince Jing's nose? I would be more worried about you getting out of that palace, because you're stuck like that for 2 hours. What? Liu was still pondering when Prince Jing suddenly walked over and lightly touched his head. What? With 3 question marks. Touching his head seemed to be a signal of some kind. Afterward, Prince Jing left him behind and left the warm room alone. Immediately afterward, Wang Ji loudly called from outside, "Your Highness wants tea? Please wait a moment. This old servant will go make it right away." Prince Jing went out to drink tea? Liu looked around the warm room. There was tea on the table already, but since this was the palace, Prince Jing wouldn't drink tea of unknown origins. When he wanted to drink tea, he would ask Wang Ji. He knew that it was normal for Prince Jing to drink tea. That's such a weird thing, Prince Jing to drink tea. I don't know, that's silly. But that wasn't the point. The point was that Prince Jing wasn't here anymore, so he could transform. This was a great opportunity, but he had to be careful. The first hurdle in transforming was clothing. There just so happened to be several sets of servant clothing hanging in the warm room, though, and some of them were about his size. Perhaps the servants changed here too. He could borrow one. The next hurdle was that there were too many uncertain factors in the palace. As someone without an identity, he had to be careful at all times. Once he transformed, he had to find Prince Jing as soon as possible and say what he wanted to say. Convincing Prince Jing to believe him in a short amount of time would also be a problem. But he still felt confident. After Liu informed him, Prince Jing would go and expose concubine Cho herself, so all Liu needed to do was stick near the crystal bottle and hide. As long as he didn't run around the palace and waited out the 2 hours safely, everything would be fine. When he transformed in Prince Jing's manner to go to the kitchens, he thought 2 hours was too short, but now it felt way too long. It was frustrating that he couldn't cancel the skill whenever he wanted, since it wasn't safe to hide in the palace. But he had no other way to communicate with Prince Jing. In a few days, the evidence that concubine Cho had injured herself on purpose might be gone. What if the emperor failed to gather evidence in time and believed her instead? What about it? Once in a while, a fish had to transform for the sake of serious business. He said a fish has gotta do what a fish has gotta do, and this was one of those times. Oh my god. His mind made up. Liu selected the skill. After he was transformed, his first order of business was to touch his stomach. It was humiliating that the crystal bottle had toppled over like that. He had to make sure that it was only his fish form that had increased in size, and that his human form hadn't become fat. Okay. Only once he was reassured about his figure did he pick out a well-fitting servant's outfit and put it on. After he changed, he gently pushed open the door of the warm room, only to see Prince Jing standing guard outside, waiting for Wang Gongong's tea. Your Highness, Liu was startled. Luckily, he didn't make any loud noises, but why didn't Prince Jing sit down at the table to wait outside instead? Prince Jing smiled down at the servant in front of him. Liu quickly realized that he was wearing servant's clothes and was pretending to be a servant. A servant should always greet a prince, but how? And he didn't need to hold his hands the fancy way. And did he need to hold his hands the fancy way they did in the opera? The operas. Wait, he might be wearing a different set of clothes, but his face had stayed the same. Prince Jing should recognize him, right? Hello, Your Highness. Liu figured he would just kowtow to muddle his way through the greeting. When he was a fish, he often saw people kowtowing to Prince Jing, but Prince Jing stopped him before he could even bend his knees. When that strong arm grabbed him, Liu knew that Prince Jing had recognized him. Liu, for some reason, felt immediately reassured. He took a moment to arrange his thoughts before he spoke up. Your Highness, I need to tell you something, he said. It's true that concubine Cho is injured, but it wasn't from the fire at Zhongqi Palace. The injury on her arm smells of cypress because the wound was caused by a burning cypress branch. That cypress branch was both concubine Cho's weapon and the evidence she had burned herself. It was obvious the fire was concubine Cho's idea. How could she actually have fallen into the flames? If she ruined her appearance or something went away, the loss would far outweigh the gains. In fact, long before Zhongshui Palace caught fire, she had already hidden far away with her closest servants. When the fire was almost extinguished, she had gritted her teeth and inflicted burns on her arms before returning quietly. As long as she insisted that she was injured by the fire, nobody would doubt it. The servant, Huan Hua, was the confidant that concubine Cho had sent to start the fire in Zhongshui Palace. She had disappeared after the fire, so as long as concubine Cho herself kept her mouth shut, nobody would ever know. That was how it was in the original book, but unfortunately, concubine Cho made several mistakes. One of those mistakes was her thoughtless decision to burn herself with a cypress branch. Cypress wood had a very particular fragrance, and the branch concubine Cho used was especially strong-smelling. Her wounds thus smelled of cypress, and it lingered for a long time. The sixth prince was the first one to notice it originally. Concubine Cho had claimed that she was injured by the fire in Zhongshui Palace, but there were no cypress trees in Zhongshui Palace. That meant she couldn't have been in Zhongshui. Why are we saying this so many times? In Zhongshui Palace when she got injured, but rather somewhere else where cypress trees were planted. In the book, the sixth prince was somewhat smart and helped the third prince find the place. Yajin Terrace, not far from Zhongshui Palace. He even found a couple of guards who had seen her there, so they had witnesses. They also found the cypress branch to concubine. They also found the cypress branch that concubine Cho had care. What is going on? I'm just making up words in my head. They also found the cypress branch that concubine Cho had carelessly dropped onto the ground. One end was burnt into charcoal, and the other end was wrapped in a thick handkerchief to make it easier to hold. The handkerchief was embroidered with concubine Cho's favorite crab-apple blossoms, and, along with the cypress branch, ended up becoming evidence against her. Why is this plan so dumb? She has so many plot holes. Boy, Liu, you don't even need to say anything. Is this obvious? As a and a key person, Huanhua, was found later as well. As it turned out, since she knew the whole story, she was afraid that her mistress would try to silence her, and ran away to hide in the imperial garden, where she was found by the third prince's agents. The third prince tortured Huanhua, forcing her to tell the truth to expose concubine Cho. In the book, concubine Cho's entire role was basically to take one hit after another, but since the third and sixth princes were no longer doing anything, Liu was afraid that concubine Cho's wicked scheme would succeed. It was impossible for him to remind the third and sixth prince of such things, so he could only remind Prince Jing and let him make a decision. Liu did his best to only mention the important points, especially Huanhua's hiding spot and the secret behind concubine Cho's injuries. Prince Jing stared at him. Liu was afraid that he wouldn't believe him, so he anxiously said, "Your Highness, it's true. Please believe me. I can't explain how. I know all. I can't explain how I. Start over. I can't explain how I know all this, but I can guarantee that I'm telling the truth. I was the one who wrote the letter to Yeshizi as well. You." This was the fastest way Liu could think of to make Prince Jing believe him, and to prove himself, though through the letter written to Ye Qinghuan. And since the letter had helped the House of Cheng'an escape disaster, Prince Jing had to believe the letter writer now. Liu recited the contents of the letter without missing a single word. The letter was a secret, only known to Prince Jing, Yeshizi, and a few confidants. Is it confidence? I think it's confidants. Other than these people, the only other person who would know about it would be the letter writer himself. Since Prince Jing had chosen to believe the letter, then he should also trust Liu as the writer of the letter. After Liu's fervent speech, Prince Jing nodded calmly, signaling that he understood. But he still didn't let go of Liu's arm. Liu gulped. No way. Why did Prince Jing react like this? He'd done the same thing the last time they met too. Prince Jing took out the jade bell and rang it. Uh-oh. Before Wang Ji went to make tea, Prince Jing had given him a note asking him to pretend to make tea and stay away until he got permission to come back. Now he rushed over and saw His Highness dragging a young servant whom he refused to let go of. This scent seemed somewhat familiar. Wang Ji's heart... This scene seemed somewhat familiar. Wang Ji's heart trembled, and he was startled to notice the servant did indeed look familiar. Wasn't this another man's concubine? What was he doing in the palace? Prince Jing glanced at Liu. Liu immediately understood and repeated everything he just said to Wang Ji. Wang Ji understood how serious the situation was and asked for orders. Your Highness, what will you do now? Liu thought, His Highness is definitely going to do it himself, but Prince Jing gave him an indecipherable glance and held up 3 of his fingers. Wang Ji smiled. The servant understands. I'll secretly pass the message along to the third prince's people. The third prince is still worried that the Marquis of An is somehow unbeatable. Let's give him a chance to do it, so His Highness doesn't have to do it himself. Fair enough. What? That was an option? Prince Jing signaled for Wang Ji to leave quickly, with an impatient look. That tripped me up because it was like it's on the edge of the it's just it's impay and then /shent because it's on the next line. Wang Ji scurried away to carry out his orders, but Prince Jing was still holding on to Liu. They stared at each other. Prince Jing took Liu to the table in the warm chamber, made Liu sit down with him, and took out ink and paper from his robes. Was Prince Jing waiting for him? Liu had a bad feeling. He timidly said, Your Highness, I have other things to do. I want to... Prince Jing quickly wrote something. Prince Jing quickly wrote, Answer my questions. Liu peeked at him and pouted. If I answer, will you let me go? Liu had just finished saying this when he remembered something. Wang Ji had said more than once Prince Jing didn't like it when others tried to bargain with him. He actually dared to speak to Prince Jing this way. If Prince Jing got angry and threw him out, that would be... Wait, actually, that wouldn't be that bad, would it? But the asshole Prince Jing raised his eyebrow and wrote, I will let you go if you answer truthfully. No way. Prince Jing didn't get mad at him? He just agreed? Prince Jing wrote, What's your name? How old are you? Why are you here? If he wanted to leave as soon as possible, Liu had no choice but to answer him. If he resisted now, he'd only be dragging himself down. With a bitter face and a low voice, Liu replied, My name is Liu. I'm 18! He's 18? Insane. I'm here because... Liu remembered what the system had said about changing the tyrant's personality. He couldn't mention that. And as for why he transmigrated into this book... I don't know either. He had no idea why he'd suddenly turned into a fish. Sob, sob, sob. That's the end of the book. That is the end of the book. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. They ended off with a sob, sob, sob. That is crazy. Oh no, I'm sad. That's the end. That's the end. You know, the good thing about these books, actually, I don't know if it's books in general. Are all books set, like, the prices set on them? Like, they all have the scan and the price thing on them, and so that people can't, like bookshops can't raise the price? Is that just, like, a thing? Is it, like... I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of the book. Why do they end it there? I can't believe this. They need to kiss already, and they need to, like, get down to it. What are they doing? What are they doing? Oh my god, I can't wait for the next book. I'm getting that book as soon as I can. It's gonna be like a week and I'll get it. I'll get it in like a week, I think. I'm pretty sure that they come out pretty fast. Like, they distribute pretty fast. As long as the shipping's okay. But, yeah. That's it. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been really fun for me, and this is also perfect timing because my neighbor decided to start mowing the lawn right now. I do not know what I'm gonna do now while I wait for this book to come out. The next book, I mean. You can hear that, right? It's picking up on the mic. That's fun. That is so fun. I love lawnmowers. Stupid. Oh man. Oh man. This was so fun. It's just a good time. It's like, it's not like... It's just a good time. It's just a silly book to forget about things. But I don't know what's in store for us. What if we get some eggs? Can I get some eggs with my fish empreg, please? Assuming there is empreg in this? I don't know. It's so silly. I love it. I'm getting the next book real fast. Oh my god. It's just so silly, and the titles are so stupid and clickbaity, and I love it. I love how stupid the titles are. I love it. Alright. But that's it for me today. I'll see you on... Actually, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. I have like a week of not reading this book. No reading streams, I guess. So I guess on... I'll have to figure out what to do. I might just do more drawing streams. But I'll probably see you on Monday. It's Friday today, right? Yeah, it's Friday. I'll probably see you on Monday. If not, I'll see you on Wednesday. And then I might have the next book by Friday next week. But we'll see. Actually, now that I think about it, I might not be able to stream on Monday because I might be suffering with cramps. Yippee! We'll see. It's up in the air. I'll see how well it'll be. But yeah, I will see you later. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching along these streams. I'm gonna have to make a new thumbnail for the next book. Oh boy, oh buddy, oh boy. I'm excited. The next book. And I don't have anything else to say, do I? Nope. I think that's it. I've been trying to upload my reading VODs a bit like earlier than when the stream comes in. Oh my god, I'm literally just leaving. I'm literally just ending. But yeah, I've been trying to upload my reading VODs to YouTube like almost not immediately, but like so people can watch it before I start streaming, so they can be in before the next stream, so that I can be so that if they want to, they have the chance. Oh my god, they have the chance to come in for live streams. I actually am thinking about moving to YouTube with these because uploading the VODs onto YouTube, you know, saving them from Twitch and then uploading onto YouTube is kind of annoying, and it would be really convenient to just have them save automatically. So I am considering that. I have never streamed on YouTube though, so it might be good, might be bad. We'll see. Yeah. I should actually really do that. I should do that. No, I should do that. Okay. I'll see you later. On Monday or Wednesday or Friday. One of those days at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. Maybe. We'll see. I might move it to 8 a.m.